Well, what is up? Welcome to the Live, Laugh, Lopez podcast, where we discuss all things life, ministry, marriage, parenthood, and so much more, all while sharing laughs along the way. My name is Jose Lopez, and with me today, I have my beautiful wife,
Natalie Lopez.
Let's go.
Queen.
But we also have some incredible special guests with us. Go ahead and share your names with us.
You want first? You want? I'm L. Lopez.
And Stephanie Lopez.
For those of you who do not know, L is my brother. Stephanie is Natalie's best friend. And we brought them onto the podcast today because guess what? We are on vacation.
Yep.
And this is Live, Laugh, Lopez out in Gatlinburg, Tennessee.
Yes, we are literally
Did I say that correctly?
on the
Gatlinburg?
top of a mountain. We have seen bears. We have
Cliffs.
run from bears. We have been afraid to drive off of cliffs because we are that high.
Yeah.
But
Driving
we wanted
Murphy.
to drag them onto our show, and they so willingly obliged, and we're happy to have them here today.
Nowhere to go. So
What?
we gotta be doing this.
We didn't really have much of a choice.
Yeah. Literally in the same
We
cabin.
kind of like basically forced them to be on this with us.
And here we are.
Here we are. We're about to have a lot of laughs and a lot of fun. So, babe, what is the topic for today?
So tonight's topic, we are going to be talking about opposites in a way. So we're going to talk a little bit about what it's like to be married to a person that's your direct opposite, right? We're going to talk a little bit about what it's like to be married to Lopez as pastors' kids, pastors' daughters. And we're also going to talk about how the differences within your marriage can actually strengthen you if you allow it to do so. So we're kind of excited to be able to talk about those topics tonight. And we thought, what better people to do it with than people who
Our
are total opposites. Like we're opposites.
You know, I honestly think that they are less opposites than we are.
Less opposite?
I think they are less opposite than we are. I really do. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we have similar, like our humor is the same.
Steph and I are basically the same person.
Yeah.
Everyone says that who meets us. We're really, really similar.
Really?
But you and Elle maybe are different, a little bit different.
We are
I
definitely
think,
different.
yeah, we're pretty different.
Elle's more laid back.
Here we go. Sorry, y'all.
We're starting this.
Here goes the first laugh.
Are we starting with shots being fired? Is that what we're
It's not
doing?
shots. It's just true. But it's not a bad thing.
No, it's true. Elle's way more laid back than me.
Yeah. Elle's a 6 on the Enneagram if we're going to go there.
Wait,
Are
on
you
the
re-
what group?
Oh.
He doesn't, we don't even,
Look,
we're not even
that's
crazy
how you
about
know.
that whole thing.
The point is, you guys are different, but that's okay. But we're, I think, more similar.
Yeah. But we're different too.
I just
I
want to
think,
verify:
yeah.
is a 6 good?
Yeah,
Is
a
that
6 is a
bad?
loyalist. It's a loyal. You're a really loyal person. He's an 8. He's a challenger. So he's like 8s are people that can stir the pot and also aren't afraid to say
issues.
things that are straightforward. I'm a 9,
Protectors.
peacemaker.
This is not an Enneagram podcast.
I know, but
We're
I'm
not
just
doing that right
saying,
now.
like, I'm just saying to prove the point that you guys are different, but you're also similar.
For those of you who do not know, we are definitely not Enneagram experts. So
No.
don't listen to anything we have to say about the
You might not even know what it
Public
is,
service
but
announcement.
check it out. Take the test, find out what you are, and then leave a comment.
The most we know about the Enneagram is our number, and that's it. At least for me.
I've read several books.
I mean, I had to ask if that was a good number, so I know nothing, not even the numbers.
Here's what I don't like about the Enneagram.
That's another episode.
It's another episode, but I'm gonna go on a little bit of a rant right now. Okay, it's another episode, but what I don't like about the Enneagram is that people take their supposed number, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, well I'm a major butthole because I'm a,"
this. No, but I think
and
it
that-
can be used just as a personality test.
Yeah, I think people
Yeah.
use it the wrong way, but they're like, "Oh yeah, here's my major flaw, and it's because I'm an 8 or a 6 or a 7 or a 2 or 25 or whatever the number is," and it's just them using an excuse for continuing to live in their bad habits and behaviors.
I just like to use it as a personality test. For me personally.
Okay, so back on topic here. This is gonna be a good episode. I can already tell. Opposites. Okay. How do we love opposites? Why is it good to be or bad to be married to an opposite? Right? Or dating an opposite? So, Stephanelle, we're gonna start with just grilling you guys. Okay.
Tell us how you guys are different.
She is. Why are you laughing? She's a lot more organized than I am. She's very, she comes from a more like structured family. Our family was more like run and gun type. Do things as they happen pretty much, and that's pretty much how I am. I'm a lot more laid back. She's more of like a planner. But that has to do with the way that she's been brought up. I don't really stress out about much, which drives her nuts because if something happens, I'm just like, okay, well then I guess we'll deal with it tomorrow or whatnot, And she's like, no, we got to get this done like today. We got to figure it out. But I guess that's how we kind of like balance each other in a sense, in that aspect.
Yeah.
Because where I can be more relaxed and more like laid back about something, she kind of pulls me back in that direction where she's like, well, wait, this is kind of serious. We got to take care of this. Like, but then vice versa. When she's like too stressed about something, I'm like, it's not that big a deal. Let's just figure out how we're going to handle it. I can be a little really laid back sometimes, which is what drives her nuts. That's the part that drives her nuts is like
On a scale from what? No.
yeah. And I'm just more of like, I'm not much of a planner, like, to be honest. If I make a plan, I'm like, oh crap, I didn't realize we had something going on that day, kind of thing. So that's one of those things and she puts everything on the Google calendar.
We live by that calendar.
Everything.
Same.
And I never put anything on the Google calendar. So I'm like, and then the thing is, I don't even go on the Google calendar to check. I'm like, hey Steph, do we have something going on this day? And she's like, yeah, I put it on the calendar like 3 weeks ago.
You live or die by our calendar.
Yes, we have to. But Steph, what do you think?
I was just gonna say, like, I think having opposites, attract, like they say, you do complement each other in that way. Like there's sometimes, like he said, like he can be very laid back, and I'm always could be like stressing out something, and that's where it's like, okay, I see why. We were, God put us together and stuff like that. So I think it's important that if you are dating somebody, that you are looking for those things. But then,
that's good.
At the same time, let's not ignore red flags either. I think sometimes it can be like one extreme to the other.
Yeah.
So I think it's finding that like balance, a healthy balance of, okay,
It's funny because so there's a lot of stuff that I think you guys have a lot that are similar to each other in that you both love to joke around a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
You both are very full of energy.
Yeah.
Like
so are our kids. My kids.
and creative.
Yeah.
Like they're both into like the
Photography.
arts, music, photography, artsy types of things.
But I could totally see what you're saying with like being way more organized and structured and like, I think you do tend to know how to turn on the seriousness a lot faster than Elle, which is not like a bad thing, but like, that's why it is cool to be with somebody who's opposite of you because typically you're what you're weak in, that person's strong in.
Yeah.
And then what they're weak in, you're strong in, and you balance each other out. Where I've seen people who are like basically the same one day, like, when they're together, and it's just like, oh my gosh.
I'm sorry, guys. I've been fighting like this whole sinus thing. I'm trying desperately not to cough, and I'm failing. But
Would you like a drink, my love?
no, I think I wanted to add something though to what you were saying.
Go ahead.
I think it's cool because I feel like with Elle's silly personality, if Steph takes things too seriously, he can jump in with the humor at the right time and like pull her from the seriousness to like lighten up the moment.
Right.
And then at the same time, when he needs to be more serious, she can jump in with just the right timing of like, hey,
Right dose.
and it kind of creates the beautiful blend of like perfect. situation.
What do you think are the difficult things about being in a relationship with somebody who's totally opposite of you?
Like red flag opposite.
I think honestly, just finding how to see each other's like how to meet each other's expectations in that sense. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's still things that obviously I'm working on to try to like, you know, be more organized.
We're still a work in
sense.
progress.
Yeah, and that's why it's the hardest part, because it takes the longest to adjust. Like it's like, you know, it's one of the things that you're learning as you go. Like especially after you get married and stuff like that. That's when you really get to know each other, and you know how you guys are. Your person. You know, when you're dating, you always want that person to see the best side of you. You know, and you're trying to impress the family and stuff like that. Not to say that it's a fake. I'm not saying that it's a fake act or anything like that. But
it's okay. When I got him, I was
once you get married, you see like the unfiltered part of that, where it's like, you know, you're with each other 24/7. At some point, you got to drop your guard. You know, it's like you might have like a shield up or whatever. At some point, you're dropping that. You know,
that's good.
So it's like, you know, after you get married and you see each other 24/7 and all that stuff, it's finding the way. Like, okay, now you acknowledge the differences. It's like trying to find the way where you're like, all right, how do we work where we meet each other in the middle? You know what I'm saying? Where I'm not trying to drag you totally, you know, I'm not trying to change exactly who you are. And good. I'm also not trying to like, but I also want you to like be better.
He wasn't gonna do.
That's honestly what I think is the hardest part.
Yeah.
Is, you know, trying to and you do as the husband or as the spouse, pretty much, you want to be better for your, you know, for your wife or your husband. So it's kind of like you kick yourself in the butt when you're like, darn it, I could have done that better, you know, But that's just part of like the learning experience, you know.
I think it's like giving yourself grace too, and like as you go through different seasons. Like right now, our kids are super little still, so you know, there's different seasons, and like your kids are older.
Yeah,
like it's like we remember when your kids were this age. So and we didn't have kids at that time, so it's kind of like you're learning as well, like in your marriage. Okay, like how do we balance this out? Healthy balance. Okay, this is a difference even in parenting styles. Like how you grew
that's
up,
true. It's really good.
How I grew up, you know, and
stuff.
blending both of those things, because obviously we want our kids to have such a huge part of who we are. You know what I mean? Their personalities, you know, already show that. It's just kind of finding, you know, how we grew up, what we want to implement, what are things we want to change. Like, so I think, you know, those are conversations you should be having now. Like if you are in a serious relationship with somebody, you know, those are things that you need to talk about, you know, because when the time comes, and like you said, you are 24/7, you know, it's not like, I would hope that you're not in a relationship just being pretending the whole time. Like everybody's like, oh, you know, your parents love them. And then when you get married, it's a train wreck. You know what I mean? I think it's important to be sincere with yourself, because in the long run, you're the one that's going to get hurt too. So I think, you know, just kind of really just having open conversation and learning, like I said, you know, just
And honestly, I don't think that that's like it's a bad thing that you're, you know, 9 years in a marriage and you're still like learning things about each other.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's a good thing, because, you know, every what 5 or something years there's like a different stage in your life, you know. Like when we first got married, it was learning how to deal with each other as like parents without kids. Then I mean, you know, husband and wife without kids. Then it's learning how to be parents together, you know. So then you're still learning how to be a parent, which, you know, being a parent changes you a whole lot in itself, you know what I'm saying? So then you become like almost like not a different person, but you know, you have a lot of different like
you're changing, you're growing.
A lot of changes going on. So it's like, you know, it's one of those things where you never really stop learning about each other. Yeah. But, you know, you're still, you know, you're still yourself. So it's kind of like you're still learning to like work with each other on how to like do each
compromise.
Stage,
you know, that's a big thing that we talk about in marriage, just compromising, even with kids, even with, you know, you have to be able to say, okay, like, even when there's a point of view, if there's something you're seeing something a certain way, and I might be like, totally, it's okay, just hearing each other out. I'm like, okay, like I can see it that way, and you know, learning just a healthy compromise. You know, is important.
That's actually a really good point, Steph, because I think there's so much you guys said that I just want to like bang, 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 bang. But like, first of all, the communication. I think that one of the things that people don't do well, specifically when they're dating, is having the like tough conversations, like
conversation.
real conversations, especially like now in this age. I think it's even become harder because of social media,
Right.
text messaging, all that jazz. Like people don't know how to communicate and talk and just like have real
Undistracted
discussions. Like,
conversations.
hey, tell me about what it was like
Yeah.
you growing up as a child. Hey, tell me about your family. Hey, tell me about like your money habits. Hey, tell me about this, that, like, are you organized, disorganized? Like, how do you see yourself with like kids, or like, are you going to be a contributor, or do you actually think I'm going to take care of everything? Or like,
that's
you
good.
know, like having those discussions while you're dating is so huge to like the success of your marriage in the future, and also just learning about each other, what makes each other tick and what makes each other tick off. You know what I mean?
Because I think if you're opposite in a way that doesn't complement each other,
Yeah.
and I think you kind of touched on it, Steph, when you talked about red flags. I think that it's important that your opposites complement each other, because if it doesn't, then it's just going to be a disaster.
Right.
Like if they're
you're both
way
headstrong and you both will not compromise.
Yeah.
Like what is going to be the end result there? Just anger, resentment, bitterness, things that are not going to help your marriage to grow. It's just going to be, it's
and
not
if you're
gonna go
opposite
well.
on like a fundamental level, like for me, faith is really important, and for you guys too.
Yeah.
So like if I'm like, oh well, opposites attract, so then I end up going with someone who doesn't have the same core values, and these are values that I want to pass on to my children or pass on, because I think a lot of people do that, and they'll be like, oh well, we're opposite, but it's fine. And I think it's okay to be opposite
in that moment.
Yeah,
but when push comes to
but
shove,
if it's like your
changes.
core values,
Don't
on
compromise. those things.
So here's a good point. Okay. The question then becomes, how do you know when to compromise and when not to compromise? Because you need compromise in certain aspects where it's like, I know I'm not going to change Natalie and make Natalie like me. And honestly, it is not good for our relationship for Natalie to become me.
Yeah.
Because
Could you imagine
could
two
you
Jose's?
imagine like
two Jose's married to each other.
that would just not
Terrifying.
be good, people. It would not be good. But how do you know though? Like honestly, the things that are like, oh yeah, I got to compromise in that area to be like, hey, like that's Elle's personality. This is Stephanie's personality. How do we get the two to meet, right? But then also, how do you go, no, this is something I'm not playing around with, and what are those things that I'm not going to compromise on? Whether it's my faith, the way that I'm going to be treated, the way that we deal with conflict, because
The way that we
although we
discipline
might,
the kids,
yeah, the way
like
we
if
discipline
people-
the kids, like because although we might handle
Differently.
things
Yeah.
differently, we also need to meet each other in a way that's going to be healthy mutually for our marriage and our relationships. So how do we decide? How do we decipher that? What's the compromise? What's not the compromise? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's good stuff right there.
And anybody could answer it. It's just a
We're throwing it out there in the comments.
throw it out there.
I
Put it in
think
the comments. Let
core
us know what you
values-
think.
Yeah, I would say core. Yeah, for sure.
I agree with the core values and stuff, but I also think too, like ultimately, I feel like you have to be honest with yourself too, in a sense. Where I feel like we all kind of know what our own flaws are. You know what I'm saying? Like
Definitely.
some of us, there's some times where people are just blind to themselves, pretty much. But like for the most part, you kind of know
Your
I could do better
weaknesses.
in this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like when something does come up, even though you might have like an initial disagreement or like, because I mean, let's be honest, that like we've had disagreements on like we don't see eye to eye on everything. You know what I'm saying? But like after you go and you clear your head and you pretty much think about it, you're like, well, I could do this a lot better. So it has to be having that honest like self conversation, self reflection. Yeah. A lot of times because you're like I said, you know at the end of the day what your flaws are. There's you know where you can do better, you know where you can improve. So it's like you think about the situation and you're like, man, maybe I should have said we could have done this or whatnot.
Yeah.
And kind of like that's where you realize. And then also if the compromise doesn't take you to like a negative, like in a negative space,
Yeah.
pretty much.
If it's
like,
something simple.
yeah, if it's something simple, like
Right.
if it's something that, like you said, like the core values, if it's something that's gonna like compromise your core values, then you're like, wait a second, no, maybe I shouldn't compromise on this, and maybe we got to figure out something else because if it's
I guess
something,
that's too. We're talking about like during the dating process.
Yeah.
That's why, like you said, those questions are so important.
Yeah.
Because obviously, if you're not, and obviously not everybody that listens as well was like in a Christian relationship, or now they're married, maybe their spouse isn't. That's totally different too. Like
Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
can compromise, because
That's good
they don't
stuff.
really
Yeah,
know
that's
the
a good
Lord.
point.
yeah.
It's really
You're
good.
like, all right, like, and I know one time we used to talk about expressing love regardless, and that's
Yeah.
what Jesus wants us to do, right? And it's not always
Yeah,
easy when
that's
you're like,
true.
well, dude, don't, this is what the Bible says, but they
Yeah.
don't want to know anything about the Bible.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think, like you said, it's having those compromises too, and also listening to your spouse and finding, like, what brings them joy. Like, how do
Yeah.
you demonstrate the love to them too? But yeah, I think it definitely is hard, and I think it's letting your guard down sometimes too.
Yeah.
You're not always right,
Yeah.
and that's hard because
That's
you're like,
really
no, I'm
hard.
right. Like,
Yeah.
but you ain't, like, you're not right, So sometimes
Yeah.
you have to compromise,
Yeah.
those tough times, and just be like, okay, no, you totally had that right, and I think that whole self-reflection and that being true to yourself.
Yeah.
And like, because obviously your spouse, if you've truly been open, like they know you
Yeah.
more than anybody. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think we're opposites in the way that Jose is way
You
more
and I are
outspoken.
opposites
in
in
every way.
everything.
Honestly, we always do say we're similar in a lot of ways, but we also will say to each
Right.
other, we are so
We're
opposite.
incredibly different.
Like there's a lot that you would be surprised to see what we don't see eye to eye on. Politics,
oh yeah.
like just a bunch of different things
A
we
lot of
actually
stuff.
totally disagree with.
Yeah.
However, I think that at the same time, your opposite, like our opposites have strengthened me because being married to you, Jose is really outspoken. Like he has no problem saying what's on his mind. That's made me more outspoken.
Right.
And it's funny because I know when people meet me now, they're like, oh, you're just naturally like outspoken or whatever the case may be. But I used to be really shy growing up.
I mean, even when
Really
we were dating,
shy.
you were very introverted.
Yeah, introverted.
Yeah.
And I'm still like a closet introvert, meaning that as much as I love people, I still prefer 99% of the time to be
Yeah.
in my robe, in my room, alone, reading in the silence.
Yeah.
That's how I prefer my life. However, he's pushed me a lot to be outspoken, to stand up for what I believe in, because I've seen him do it in action for me. And then just seeing him do it for himself
Yeah.
has pushed me. And I think, how would you say that I've like, our differences have strengthened
You have.
you?
I would say you definitely chilled me out a little bit.
A little bit.
Guys,
I say a lot.
you would say a lot.
No,
'Cause
you
you guys have
definitely-
seen
You've
us.
been there from the
I
beginning.
say a lot.
They've been there from the
Hell knows
beginning.
he's
So
been there
I
their
would
whole
say-
life.
A lot with a capital A.
Yeah.
No, I would say definitely a lot. I think one of the greatest ways that you have helped me is in the area of communication. Because for those of you who may not know, Natalie is extremely good at defending herself verbally and verbally communicating, what's bothering her and stuff like that. Whereas for me, that took me a long time to learn. But Natalie has actually helped me to be like, okay, sit, process, think about what you're going to say before you're going to say it. And like say it in a way that's clear and concise, but also respectful.
Yes.
There's a way to be straightforward
last part.
without being an absolute a-hole kind of thing. Yeah, I said it. That's right, a-hole. This is my podcast. I can say what I want. I said what I said, and I meant what I said. But definitely the area of communication.
Being a better listener.
Being
Because
a
I
better
always
listener.
tell you, like, I will always tell him, you need to listen better. Like, did you listen? Are
Yeah.
you? If you're going out with someone, I'll be like, make sure you listen.
Let's make one thing clear. Natalie is absolutely the people person. So even in ministry, right? Natalie is absolutely the person who will like care deeply for someone, who will like, listen to people when they speak, who like genuinely like disciples, mentors, really cares about people's
You're getting
emotions.
better, though.
I'm getting better,
You're not
but it's
bad at
because
it.
but that's the point.
Yeah.
My point is I'm getting
compliment
better
each
at it
other. Yeah.
because of how I've seen you do it, or how you've always challenged me to be like, okay, but think about this, listen more, talk less, hear people out, show some empathy and
Yeah.
So I'm
Feel
learning
for
to be a
others.
better people person. It doesn't come naturally to me.
Yeah.
but I've learned it from being in a relationship and married to you. There's so many ways. I mean, you've helped me even with the way that I deal with like my anger, my frustration, to be like constantly like, hey, come on, think about it. You know, like put a smile on your face. Like, don't let this ruin your day, whatever the case may be. There's so many ways that you have
and it can
loved me and encouraged me and made me better.
because I think
I wouldn't be the man I am today without you, babe.
soundbite guys, please take that out.
I've got the button, but I'm not going to use it right now.
Because I think that the differences within a marriage can make you better.
Right.
You know?
But I think I want to go
If
back to
you
something that you
use it the
guys
right way.
said because it is so important that I think that what you're alluding to is that it genuinely, you have to come from a place of humility.
Yeah, always.
Always. In any relationship, especially in a marriage, you always have to come from a place of humility. I personally cannot stand it when a guy comes up to me and they're like, but she did this, she did this, she did this, she doesn't do this, she's not like this, you know what I mean? And I'm just like, bro, what are you bringing to the table?
Yeah.
Because I know you are just as jacked up. Like there's stuff that, so like when a guy's like, oh, well, she needs to change the way that she talks to me. Maybe you need to change the way you listen.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it always takes two to tango.
Yeah.
And I really think that part of this, the compromising that we're talking about is coming from a place of like, I am not always right.
Yeah.
And there's actually something wrong within me first.
Yeah.
So if I could just look inwardly first and come into this from a place of humility and a place of working together to not change her, but to change us.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? To not make her better, but to make us better, you know, then that's what's going to strengthen our relationship as opposites.
Yeah.
As two different people coming together as one.
Question.
Yeah.
So we talk a little bit about how we married coming from like opposite worlds. How did you guys adapt to each other coming from like totally different families? Steph, tell them a little bit about your upbringing. And then Elle, like without, you don't have to go into like crazy detail, but whatever you want to say just about how both your upbringings were and how did that,
Like,
how did you blend that? Like how did you learn to kind of have a new rhythm of what your life was going to be?
Because you
mean-
guys' relationship is a lot like ours, right?
Right.
So like,
Yeah.
obviously we're
Wait.
brothers.
Yeah.
But
brother.
go ahead.
I want to hear you guys.
I'll let
Yeah.
you guys.
Tell
I'll
your
let you guys
story.
tell it.
So I guess for me, like obviously, I've always grew up in a Christian home. You know, I've always been a pastor's kid, basically. Both of my grandparents, my dad's father was a pastor, my mom's father was a pastor, and then my father became a pastor. You know, so I've been a pastor's kid probably since I was like 9, 10, like full blown pastor's daughter.
Yeah.
But ministry has always been, you know, family core of our family. You know, so I think, you know, meeting Elle, like initially, right? Like we always were hanging out. Like we were just talking about this other day because we were like, they want us on the podcast. Like we got to talk about this. And it was just funny because I feel like people are probably looking in where we're like, how, you know? And for us, like it wasn't, I know Natalie, everything's matchmaker and all that, but like even then I feel like you really weren't in it like that. Like
No.
it kind of
All I found out
happened
was
just
that Elle
surprisingly
liked her, and that was
Any
really
and days.
it. Like it was like that part of just saying,
Yeah.
putting the bug in her ear, like, would you consider it? And that's kind of like
yeah,
it.
right.
And you guys took that off on your own.
But I feel like obviously you guys have been dating forever. Like,
Yeah.
you know, obviously, you know, being her friend for so long, like I've seen what Natalie did. And then when Jose came in the picture, like, so it was kind of third wheeling, hey, but, you know, just the
Love
whole
a good
process
third wheel.
too. You know what I mean? So I think we kind of always just were together in a sense. And then when it happened, it was just very natural. But I feel like people kind of were like, you know, when they first, obviously, we should do like a picture before.
yeah, you guys
my
have
gosh,
to
that'd
see
be
what
awesome.
Elle looks
The
like.
cornrows and everything.
You guys
Like-
have to see what Elle looks like before,
cornrows,
guys.
Talking about
straight,
total
white
opposites.
T-shirt down to the knees,
Baggy
like
pants.
baggy pants.
Yeah.
He had the
like,
cornrows down to the back, like his
Long
lower
hair.
back. It
Yeah.
was long, yeah.
Tongue ring, all
Right.
the piercings.
Used to wear the
Which-
fitteds all crooked and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
It's not to
Wig
say that
cap.
anything's wrong with
Right.
that, but
Yeah.
it's definitely like
Two different
when you
worlds.
wouldn't
it's different
consider-
worlds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think people that have known me for so long wouldn't think I would.
Yeah, you wouldn't
dated
think so.
somebody
No.
like him. To be honest,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
gonna keep it real.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like even after when we really started dating, obviously he wasn't necessarily looking like that anymore. You know what I mean?
I made
Like,
some
he cut his
changes. I made some
hair,
changes.
You know,
had a glow up.
It's okay to have a type. Like, it's okay for me
Yes.
to say, like, to have a type. Like, to be like, you know what? I'm attracted to this. I'm not
Right.
attracted to that.
Yeah.
Or
Was
if
that-
Jose dressed like a
have
clown,
a
I could
type.
say that's not my type.
Was
Yeah.
that your type, babe?
No, you weren't in the beginning.
Dang, but I still
you were
got
still-
the girl. Bang.
But you were
Right.
still
Yeah.
handsome no matter what.
I just
Back
remember-
to
You
you.
adapted right
so
now.
much I just remember about that whole time. It's so great. But yeah, I remember people be like, I wouldn't picture you with somebody like that. I picture you with a guy in a 3-piece suit, and I think because my parents were pastors and my dad was a preacher, like
They had a
this is
vision
what
for you.
was a vision for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think a part of my myself too was like, okay, well maybe this is somebody that I should be looking at, like
Yeah.
looking into, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? But I think when it happened, it was very just like
Natural.
natural. And I think one thing that really I was attracted to was just he was very real from the get-go. Like
Yes.
like he had whatever, but he never tried to be somebody he wasn't.
Never.
Like for me, you
Yeah.
know, like because I'm telling you right now,
Never.
like, people real quick, oh, what's your favorite Bible scripture? I also like movies, y'all. Like we don't
Yeah.
have to be talking about the
Yeah.
Bible 24/7, and I love the word, but I just felt like it wasn't like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What's your favorite worship song?
Yeah.
I love worship.
People
but-
felt like because
Yeah.
you're a
You know what I
pastor's
mean?
daughter, they
That's-
have to
that's
treat you
always,
like that.
yeah.
And
And
he
that's
just
how it
treated
was.
you like a human.
And a lot of times that's kind of like a lot of times that's a front that people that
Right,
they kind of
right.
like knowing that you are the pastor's daughter is kind of like let me try to over spiritualize myself
Right.
Yeah.
to like kind
Let me
of,
be what I think she
We,
might
Yeah.
want.
we ought to be
Yeah.
fasting for 7 days.
Right.
Yeah, right.
You know, a whole week out of the month, every single month.
I think part of that was the fact that we also used to hang out too,
Right.
so it's like
There'd
it was
be
always
times like that Jose, like when they were dating, like they would come over our house, right? They would hang out with my parents in the kitchen, and you and I were making
All
like
the
some dumb
time.
video. Like
Yeah.
they were having coffee with my
Yeah,
parents.
that's
So,
true.
so that was even before
Shout
him and
out
I were
to
even.
Pastor Ben and
yeah,
Naomi,
like
by
we
the
were
way.
even dating. It was just
Yeah.
like just happens. So
Yes.
I think that that's one thing. You just truly be who you are at
Yeah.
all times, and that the change can happen like during that process. And it
Yeah.
wasn't even like I don't think I put pressure on you. Like,
No.
I want you to look like this.
You never
or-
tried to change him.
Yeah,
I put
it
more
wasn't.
pressure on him. I was like, bro, you got to cut that hair.
Yeah, no,
like,
yeah.
please.
But that
For
was
the
more,
love of
that
God.
was more as like an older sister
Yeah,
type.
that's
know,
just 'cause
type
I was
thing.
trying to
It wasn't
look
more
him
like-
out.
It wasn't like you gotta change your hair
No.
because Steph doesn't like it.
Natalie was always like, "Man, look, bro, I'm just trying to look you
Just
out,
trying
bro."
to look
Yeah.
it. That hair
Trying
is,
to look a
it
brother
is
out.
not a good look.
Yeah. But I think obviously that was my world. That's what I known, and obviously, so then meeting him and then just our process, I think it didn't happen very fast. Like for me, it always took a little more time to get to know somebody,
Yeah.
to talk to them, because I knew the weight of what I had, God had put upon my heart, and just, my
Yeah.
purpose. Like I was very aware of those things.
It was more than a
So-
year before you guys even officially dated.
Yeah.
I feel like you guys were friends for more than a year.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. Because I felt like I wanted it to be like, I don't know what the word is, but I didn't want it to be like, just because Natalie and Jose, and
Yeah.
like I had to make, even though we always talked, it'd be cool if we married brothers. Like we really didn't think that was gonna happen. Like,
It just panned out that way.
you know what I
worked
mean?
out.
So it was like you wanted it to be genuine, is the word I'm
Yes.
looking for. Like not something that was orchestrated. And I
Yeah.
felt like for me, like that was what I wanted. Like, okay, I just genuinely want to know who he is, and like see if he's for real. Like, knowing my family, knowing, all the things. Like, is he still willing to put in the effort? You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? And I think it's okay to be pursued. Like,
Yeah, that's good. That's really
I
good.
know we got to talk about, but women should be pursued. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Like, and I think guys too, but I feel like sometimes we just compromise so much. Like, and even during that time, I know people like, yo, Steph, but like, come on, like,
Listen, ladies, there's nothing wrong with making him work for your love.
yeah. So I think, I'm
Jose
sure
got
I could talk
saved
about
and I-
that.
There's
You know,
nothing
give
wrong
him-
with being the person pursuing either. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you pursue
Pursue
what you want.
me.
You know what I'm saying? So it's, it's what I wanted. You know what I'm saying? But
He's like, about your upbringing.
yeah,
so.
no, and I feel like that again, like kind of bringing back the whole difference thing. That's probably why she's like so much like a better communicator than we are. I mean, I'm pretty sure my brother can attest to this. We didn't, we were pretty on our own pretty early on. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like one of the things that attracted me to like even the family was how tight knit they were. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? We didn't really have like that
Yeah.
growing up. Besides me and my brother, you know.
Yeah.
Like it was something that the family aspect was like so. It was
Attractive.
it was it was there.
Yeah.
So it's like we didn't, like I said, the way we grew up was we were pretty much on our own early on. I always tell people this. Sorry, I always tell people this too. It's like a lot of times, it's like kind of like my brother helped raise me in a sense.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people don't know why me and my brother are so close, but that's part of the reason why is because he, practically helped raise me. So it's like, that's like the closest thing I had. So that's why we were always hanging out.
Yeah.
We were always hanging out. And, once we started hanging out together, it made it kind of easy for us to kind of really
develop a friendship.
develop that friendship.
Yeah.
Because we were friends at first, before we even started. We were friends for about a year before we even started. Like we had that whole dating conversation, and we had a lot of like very real conversations throughout that time as like just as friends,
Yeah.
and it developed into the whole us dating and us spending more time.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why it was kind of easy for us to eventually, start dating.
Don't
because
downplay friendship. I feel like people are quick to just look, oh, he's
Friend
attractive.
zone. Don't stick them in the friend zone forever.
Yeah.
Don't be
do that.
unafraid to explore the possibility of a really solid friend that could be the love of your life.
And everybody's story is different. You know what I'm saying? Everyone's story is a whole lot different. So, you don't have to expect to be like friends like we were for a whole year before,
No.
But like,
obviously, I waited like a day of Jose being fully saved, and I called him. So.
we just know that for
This girl
us.
was pushing so hard.
Could
We
you
know
blame
that
her
for
though?
First life, probably.
I said, could you blame her though? I mean,
It was the piano vest, wasn't
I
it? Like the musical
Piano
vest. It was like the piano vest.
Yo.
At Gabby 16.
Yes, that's what I remember.
I ain't
for
gonna
us,
lie,
it's
I
one
was
of-
pretty hot back then.
Hey,
Yeah,
you
game.
know Lopez brothers,
Oh,
man.
here we
We
go.
got we
Here
had
we
it going
go.
on, bro. I
Catches,
mean,
bro.
I'm stuck in the dad bod now, but I still got some game. I
so,
think.
Still
you know
got
what I'm saying?
game. Still looking good. But how did you guys like coming into your marriage? How did that like impact the beginning? That first year, like coming from two totally different. How do you
Well,
feel like you?
In a way, like I was gonna say too, like us. Like her, I feel like her parents never really, people were like, really him, kind of, like that's the one you're dating and stuff.
Now they're like, do
but
you
I
have
feel
another
like her
brother?
parents never really,
No, they never. Yeah.
like made me feel like
Like
I
an
was
outsider.
like, yeah, exactly. They always treated me like family. They were always very nice to me, and that's part of the reason why I kind of like wanted to like really respect them too.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I didn't want to mistreat their daughter,
Yeah.
or treat her badly or anything like that. So that I think in that sense, like us coming together, like after we got married, it was kind of not that, I guess,
Was
not
it a
that
smooth
hard.
transition?
It was a pretty
Yeah.
smooth transition, I mean, do you think it's?
That's like I got some real stuff to say.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's still things like I feel like communication was a big thing. 'Cause,
Yeah.
like,
It's always gonna
it
be a
was
thing. For
like
them.
a Lopez, like
Yeah.
it's just hard. Like I think I'm more verbal too, and I think
Yeah.
and I'm just like, and he's like, I'm gone, like I'm not gone, but like
Yeah.
just needed a moment to process whatever he was feeling, and me, I'm like, I need to talk about this,
Yeah.
Right here and
we
right
need to
now.
figure this out,
No,
like
That was tough.
think-
and I think it's still like
Yeah.
he's just the kind of person that bottles his feelings in, so. That's just, I think, your nature. Like you don't, you're not one to be like, "Why I feel about this," and
But I feel
just
like
don't.
that. I feel like
you
that
just don't.
that goes back to like our upbringing. 'Cause
Yeah.
a lot of
Definitely
times,
does.
like growing up, that's how you.
And
I'll
then
be
the
honest. A
first
lot of
year of
times,
marriage is just hard. It's just
Yeah.
hard
No,
work.
it's
period.
because
like,
I think growing up in the environment that we grew up in, you couldn't like. I'm gonna speak for myself.
yeah,
Growing up in the environment that we grew up in, we could not share really how we felt, and it was almost like a
couldn't be
defensive
vulnerable.
mechanism. Yeah, because
That's the word, yeah.
and I'm learning this through therapy, counseling. We did not have a safe space to express how we were feeling. And and we never felt safe in that environment that way.
Yeah.
And that's why and that was what was so hard for us coming from two totally different worlds.
Yeah.
She communicated very well, quite frankly, maybe sometimes too much. And
Now
I'm
they call
just
you a
keeping it
fool,
real,
it
y'all.
cuts right to the bone. That's
No, she'll just be like, by the time you're done, you're like cutting 15 pieces and you just want to like blow up everything.
Lord, take the wheel.
You know, and whereas our form of communication, especially in negative conflict, was through violence.
Yeah.
Right. And so we would like blow up, we would fight, we would, you know, whatever the case may be.
And we've never seen that in our marriage.
No, never.
Thank God.
Never.
Because
you know.
I look like someone that
y'all listen, don't let the size fool you. My woman's
Yeah.
scrappy, you know what I mean? No, but seriously, that's why.
Yeah.
Like I'm 35 years old and learning that now about
how
myself.
to communicate. Yeah.
How to communicate and why I had that defensive mechanism of shutting down, but it was mostly a defensive mechanism based out of the fact that I never felt safe. And because I didn't feel safe to do so, I would put that guard up because I'm not going to show you a sign of weakness. That's how it
And be
was.
vulnerable is
And
always-
be
Yeah.
vulnerable, you know what I
It's a
mean?
weakness, yeah.
Exactly, because the only way that I could gain respect was through like to be strong and to emphasize my dominance
Yeah.
emotionally, physically, whatever the case may be. And so that's just like, you know, that's what's crazy about coming from. I tell Natalie it's two worlds colliding because Natalie grew up just like you. She was a pastor's kid. Shout out to my mother-in-law. She never made me feel like an outsider, but she let me know all the time that Jesus was watching me. I'll never forget. I gave her one hug, and outside of the church, we were going out. She was like, "I just want to let you know, Jesus is always watching you."
I saw you hugging her, and it was
She's
too
like
long.
this thug kid trying to take advantage of my daughter. No, but you know, nah, she ended up freaking loving me. She still loves me.
She's on
even
vacation
though I
with us
couldn't
right
be.
now,
Yeah, she's
actually.
shout out to my mother-in-law
She's
who's in
listening
the
and
other room
laughing.
listening.
Drinking Gatorade.
But
chips.
I always told Natalie, genuinely, it was two worlds colliding. And it's just like, how do we, two opposite worlds,
Yeah.
right? Like, that was hard for us in the
And we're
beginning
still
of our
all learning.
relationship. And we're still learning. And through counseling, it's been really helping. Like, Natalie has been saying a lot lately. Like, she's getting to understand me more.
Yeah. I keep trying to tell people
From, like,
that
talking about
they're
my
getting
trauma.
a totally different version of you. Steph and Elle know. We all have been friends with each other since we were. Steph and I have been friends since 7th grade, and the guys came in the picture when we were in high school. So it's like we've been friends for forever now. We're all in our 30s, you know?
Yeah.
So I think also seeing each other grow and like,
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
and
a
I
beautiful
think,
thing.
yeah. And I feel like Steph and I always can get together and we will compare. We'll be like, yo, Jose's doing this.
Today, this Lopez did.
Literally.
On today's episode
Yeah.
of Living with the Lopez.
Living with
What's
the
funny though
Lopez.
is that what's funny is
I
that
know they do the same thing.
it's funny because earlier we had mentioned how me and my brother are very different.
Yeah.
But we're also
Really
like very
similar.
alike in
Really
like a lot of
similar.
stuff, like in our interests
Yes.
and like
The way you handle things.
Maybe
110%
personality wise,
for
we're a
any
lot
project.
different,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
personality wise, but like we do a lot of like the same things.
But
or, like,
you know what? Let's talk about this because I think that the reason why you and I are so different personality wise is because our roles were different.
yeah, exactly. Like,
So I would say
feels
that
sick.
because you, like going back to what you said, I kind of raised you
Yeah.
a little bit, right? So I always tell people I did not get to live a childhood. Like
Yeah.
I don't know what it's like to be a kid because I didn't feel like I got to actually experience what it was like to be a kid. Whereas you kind of did because I, as your older brother, did a lot of caring for you and played that like
That's why he's the
father figure.
yeah, he's
like
fun, lighthearted.
so that's why you're fun and
strict.
lighthearted because in a way I've always had to be the one that like took on more of the responsibility.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really why our personalities are so different and you're more chill and I'm not as chill, although I've gotten more chill over the years.
But in marriage, I feel like that's where we kind of like tag in and collaborate on like, okay, So like we're able to kind of come together because you guys are really similar in that, and we can kind of draw from each other to learn like, hey, like I'll always tell her, this is what we're learning in therapy. I always tell her, and I'll tell Elle the same thing. I always tell them because I'm like, Elle, this is
Stephanie,
you.
No wonder she be coming home. We
just
should
talked
really
about
try
this and
this.
try
Try doing this. Like, no, but I
helps.
agree 100% with that. Like, like you said, the roles. Like I always say, I tell Steph all the time too. Like you were like almost like the father figure. Pretty
Don't cry,
much.
bro.
And listen, I'm not a crier. You know what I'm saying? We grew up stronger now.
I'm just messing.
No, but I mean, even like stuff like helping me, you know, when it came to like getting a car insurance or phone, everything was like I would have to get things under your name and like you know, because I wasn't old enough to do so. It was like you took me to work, took me to school, like. You know, so it was one of those things that like
See that nurturing piece.
Yeah, it was that nurturing thing, and
yeah.
And that's why. But I feel like that's why we're so tight too, and
Right.
it's like again, that's probably why I feel like a lot of times I you know, because we didn't really talk about a lot of like issues growing up, like. That's why I'm always like people who know me know that I'm a goof. Like, you know, I joke around all the time. I'm always making jokes. I'm always trying to be the funny guy in the room. And I feel like a lot of times that was probably part of my defense mechanism.
Yeah,
You know what
survival.
I'm saying?
It was how you survived.
Yeah, because in school, no one knew, anything we were going through in school because I was like the class clown. Like, you know, teachers thought I was just, you know, some kid happy as can be, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But
Until you acted out.
Yeah.
And then they knew.
Until I acted out, yeah. Until you know, until they, like you said, we did resort a lot of times to like, you know, defend ourselves.
Yeah.
Violent, you know,
And then it
violently.
impacts your relationships because that's just opposite.
Yeah.
So then you're relearning all over again. You have to relearn how to actually communicate like an adult, like how to actually, if you're mad, we're not all going to go into a boxing ring and we're not all going to fight each other.
Yeah.
That doesn't work in the real world. So having to actually learn like communication styles, having to learn love languages so that we, because we also had to learn how to adapt to that and how to also address those ways of like making you feel secure through like whatever love language that might be or whatever the case, because of, you know, when you're married to someone who's gone through trauma in their life, that impacts your marriage. You know what I mean? We've all faced it in some way, shape, or
But
form.
I think that's a good point, babe, because those of us who have gone through trauma, or maybe the opposite, just simply the opposite person, we have to be okay with relearning certain things.
Yeah.
Like,
Because you can't just be like, oh,
You
well,
can't just
because I
go-
grew up like this, I'm going to be a butthole.
right.
Nobody cares.
You know,
Yeah.
and, which I think it's
I
true,
care,
though.
but you
Like,
can't be.
because I grew up this way, or because I didn't grow up seeing what a father looked like, or because
just
I
gonna
didn't
be a bad
grow up
dad.
seeing
Yeah.
what a husband looked like, I'm going to use that as my excuse to be,
carry it. Yeah.
to just take that on as my identity.
Yeah.
Rather than saying, okay, no, like, yeah, this might be the way I typically communicate, but that's not a healthy way of communicating. And I
Yeah.
have to be like, okay, I need to relearn
What
or
to do.
unlearn
Yeah.
certain things
true, too.
and learn how to like grow
Yeah.
in this specific area. Again, to not better me or to not better her, but to better us.
Yeah.
Right?
So, in final, like to kind of like bring us back to full circle,
Wrap it up, babe.
my question to you guys would be, what advice would you give to a couple that they're completely different? You know, maybe we could talk about like what would you say about how to
There's
use
obviously
those
things that
things?
make them
Yeah.
similar, right? Because
Yeah.
they are attracted to each other, or
Yeah.
you know, they have similar interests. And but go ahead, finish with your whole cert.
Yeah, just saying like if they're in the process, like they're like, okay, we're in this relationship, but we can't really figure out how to make these differences work for us. Like, what could you say? What would you do to like encourage them, or what's something that you think they could start with
This is the
to?
dating process, or this like marriage? Like,
You could speak to either one, honestly, because we have
Yeah.
people that are in the dating, we have
Right.
single people listening,
Right.
and we have married people.
I think if you're both willing to put in the work, I think that's the big piece. Like, it's
Yeah.
not just, I'm just gonna be the queen, as we say, and let this king come do his thing. Like, no, you have to be willing to put in the work. All right.
Yeah.
Like, if you know you're from two different upbringings,
Yeah.
if you like completely two different things, and I think we talked about this too. Obviously, having little kids, Like, what are things that we like doing together? You know, not watching Cocomelon 24/7. Like, what are some things that we enjoy? You know, and obviously photography. Like, we love artsy things. We love music. So I think it's trying to rekindle, right? Finding those things, especially if I know people that are like the kids. Like, that's where we're at. So I get it. Like, finding the ways to rekindle that fire within your marriage. Like, what are things that we enjoy doing? Binge watching a show. Like, that's our summer thing. I'm like, you know, even though I be falling asleep because I'm tired, you know, we still try.
Let's watch a show halfway through the first episode.
But I think if you're dating, it's definitely putting in the work. And I think when you put in the work, you will see if you are truly compatible, right? Yes. And obviously, I'm encouraging, if God is not in the center, like, that's the first step. Like, you know? And the word is very clear about being unevenly yoked. Like, that's the first thing. If you're trying to make something work and it's not even like,
stop trying to make fetch happen.
Yes,
it's not
don't
gonna
make it happen. You know what I mean? Everyone else seeing it, and you're just like still trying to push and make it happen. And listen to those godly counsel friends, like your leaders. You know, people that are like on the outside watching in, like they're just like, no. You know what I mean? So I think. Or your parents or people that you really love that know you, you know, they start seeing you compromising all these things and they're just like, who are you? Like, we don't recognize you anymore. I think that's a scary place to be because if you're just dating doing that, let alone in your marriage, like, it's not going to last. You know, and if you're in your marriage, like I said, just rekindling those things that, you know, you find that you did enjoy doing together, you know, and even if you've been in marriage for a long time, you know, that happens too. Like, you don't recognize each other, you know, anymore. Like, finding those things, but I think it's never giving up, like, and just being willing to put in the work. You know, if you need help, seek help. You know, and obviously communicating is key. You know, and even when it's hard and you don't want to do it, like, you still like you said, you're still learning, unlearning certain habits. Like, I think it's recognizing those things and being able to blend them together. We are blending. Yeah. Blending. Like, you have to. You know? It's and I think that people just don't lose hope, you know, don't give up. Like, but at the same time, like, if you are in that date, I think that's the big piece. Like, put in the friendship, like, you know, look at those things now and you're just like, if you're trying to make something work. But it's just not. Like, it's okay to be like, you know what?
This isn't working.
It's not working. You know what I mean? There's other fish in the sea, you know what I mean? It's hard to say. When you're going through it, you don't want to hear that, you know, and you might feel devastated. Like, I remember being the time when everyone else around me was married and I was like still dating. Like, you know, I was dating in my early 20s. Like, you guys were getting married while I just started dating now. So it was a different, you know what I mean? It was a different time. Like, it was like, okay, but everyone around me was getting married. So I was just like, oh my God, like, I'm thinking how old, and now I'm like, oh my God, we're 30s. But like, you know, back then you were just like the last one, you know, and you're just like, okay, like, you know, so that even then I was just like, okay, like, I really want this to be like God driven and I want it to work. Like, not just because this is it, he's the only one, like, you know, but really just thinking about those things and like, okay, like, this is what's important to me. These are the things I'm not willing to compromise. My faith, like, you know, just your worth, like, things are your worth. Like, you just don't compromise certain things. So.
And I think too, like, to emphasize this point of what you said, if you're married, there's people that listen to our podcast that are married and they're struggling in relationships. They have already married someone that they're different now. Like, let's say, you know, you got married 15 years ago and now there is nothing that's in common. Like, maybe a person changed their faith, a person walked away, a person, you know. There's so many different things. I think, you know, what you said about like finding common ground. And like we talked about it tonight a little bit over dinner. Even if it's finding a hobby that you can do together, something new, a new routine. Like, hey, we're going to cycle, or we're going to learn to paint ceramics, whatever it is. But I like the idea of finding something together that you can explore to kind of build upon that common ground. If it's something that you have two totally different faiths, you can't expect that in a day there's going to be this dramatic change. But if you can start small with like a common ground of something you can learn together, I think that can help like establish the relationship. So
no, that's good. I would add to that, just simply come from a place of humility. I think that's for me.
Eat humble pie every day.
That's eat humble pie every day. Stop making life solely about you. And I think when you approach life that way, it makes any relationship that much more better. You know what I mean? So I would say communication, compromise, humility. But I also love what Stephanie said. Surround yourself with people who can call you on your crap, who can hold you accountable,
And actually listen to
who
them.
genuinely, and actually
Care
listen
about
to
you and
them,
love you,
because
yeah.
not
Everybody's
everybody is
saying
against
it's terrible.
you. Not everybody is
Maybe
against
it
your
is.
relationship. Some people just see things that you don't
Can't
see
say.
because you're love blind.
Yes,
That's
love
perfect.
blind. You have a blind spot when you're in love.
man.
And
You
you
think
can't be
they're
afraid
perfect.
of like acknowledging any red flags either. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're in the dating process and there are red flags,
That's the time to find
that's
it.
the time to
That's the
acknowledge
time.
it.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like there's, you know,
Run for your life.
I feel like like I said, when we were dating, we had like a lot of conversations, and that was one of the things that was very important to us was, you know, the fact that we were like, God was a big part of our relationship, and that was something that neither one of us were like willing to budge. And
I was gonna say, because there was a time when like we started dating, like our schedules were so different. I worked like 9 to 4. He worked 4 to like midnight or something crazy.
Yeah.
So it was like the only time we got was like a lunch break, and it was talking on the phone like at
Yeah.
midnight. You know what I mean? And it had to communicate because
Yeah.
like we couldn't see each other.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
You know, I think it's important, like you said, to talk to your whoever it is. that
Yeah.
you're trying to talk to.
and just have, you know, if you can't have those honest conversations when you're dating, like you're gonna have to work that much more harder when you're married.
Yeah.
Because now you got to learn how to have those conversations when you're married now, you know? So it's like, if you learn to have some of those hard conversations while you're dating,
Save yourself the heartache.
exactly.
Yeah.
When you're married, having some of those, I mean, mind you, you know, like I said, she's a much more better communicator than I am. So that's something that I'm still like,
Working
you know,
on.
working on. I'm not the best communicator, but like, you know, it's something that I feel like I've gotten a lot better at, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Heck yeah.
and it's just that whole being vulnerable with each other, you know?
Yeah.
So just don't be afraid to like, even in the dating process, acknowledge the red flags, because if a red flag is enough to make the person pull away and just be out, then that goes
That's
to show
your red
that wasn't
flag.
the right that wasn't the right person for you. You know? It's like,
Yeah.
you know, so just be like, hey, I noticed this is something, you know, and if you
say what
come
it is,
if you
like,
approach
yeah.
it with humility and you know, okay, I could probably work on that, and if I do, it's gonna make me better in the long run.
Then go for
Then do that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with changing. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I've changed a lot. You know, since we were dating, and I mean, I'm pretty sure you guys can attest to that. Like,
Yeah.
you've changed a lot.
We've all
too, so.
changed. Absolutely. So,
Well, that is today's episode
Yeah.
of Live, Laugh, Lopez.
that was fun. We really
Thank
loved having you guys with us.
coming
You'll have to
on.
come back.
Thank
have to
you
come back.
for tuning in today.
Yeah.
Listen, if you heard something on
Tell
this
us in the comments.
episode that will really touch you, please go ahead and tell us in the comments. But also make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button, so you can get notified every time we post some new content. We love you guys, and we can't wait until the next episode of Live, Laugh, Lopez. Deuces.